Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of C.I.C. Lounge. I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.
And today we are going to be talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds Episode 3.
Tomorrow and tomorrow.
And tomorrow. Season 2, Episode 3, sorry. And spoiler alerts, we do talk about the episode. If you haven't watched it, stop, go watch, and then come back and join us.
Wow. Okay.
I'm interested in what you have to wow about, because I was texting her yesterday about some things in the episode, and she's like, "Oh, I have a lot of things to say," so I'm excited about this.
So, as I'm watching the episode and the story is unfolding, I tell my husband as we're watching this, I'm like, this is something I would write. And it's not to say that I'm like this epic Star Trek writer. What I mean by that is I am not very nice to my characters.
Oh, yeah.
And they were brutal.
I've been in a couple of her projects, and I get beaten up and killed often. So, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They were brutal to La'an in this episode. And she is very quickly becoming one of my favorite characters of the series. Like, the stuff that they're having her do. And we've talked about this in the last couple episodes, how what are they going to do with La'an? And it's the next episode.
Oh, I know. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, well, last week we were talking about, I wonder what they're going to do with La'an. And this week we get a full-fledged, this is what we're going to do. We're going to fuck with her.
It was brilliant storytelling, start to finish.
Emotional growth in this episode was amazing.
Phenomenal actress. Phenomenal actress.
I don't want to ruin anything for the end, but the ending of that episode.
Oh my gosh.
Holy shit.
Yes.
I was a little
if you weren't crying, there was something wrong with you, because she delivered. You felt that.
Oh, 100%. This woman is a great actor.
She's the daughter of an immigrant from Hong Kong who immigrated to the UK. Her mother is an English woman, and so...
Oh, the actor?
Christina Chong.
Wow, you did a lot of background research on La'an.
No, not La'an. No, La'an was that whole Gorn thing, and, and I watched The Ready Room, which is Will Wheaton's, after episode, and so that gave me a little bit of perspective. They were shooting in Toronto on location, which is very rare for Star Trek to do, because they're usually set in a different time period, so it's hard to shoot, 24th century and 21st century Earth. But no, they talked a little bit about what it was like shooting in on location, and the actor who plays Kirk, what was his name, is Paul Wesley, and how the two of them, they were, that first scene between them in the Ready Room, mm-hmm. I'm like, sparks. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. I don't even know what this episode's about. I knew there was a time travel element, but I'm like, oh my gosh. Talk about chemistry.
Oh yeah. I think the actors have a lot of chemistry, and the characters definitely had a lot of chemistry. I was a little hesitant at first during the episode. How are we going to give these two any kind of romantic interest in each other in less than 45 minutes of an episode? But again, the script writing, the directing, that everything just fell into place with this episode.
It did. We talked a little bit about how, in the last episode, how she's coming to terms with her augment name, Noonien Singh. Now we know how to pronounce
Sing,
not to be confused with Sung from Data's lineage, but whatever. But no, so they talk a little bit about how La'an's character at the beginning of the episode, she's just starting to warm up, mm-hmm. But she's going through the paces in the very opening, of her job, the noise complaint against Spock.
That was pretty funny. I'll try to not be so enthusiastic.
the illegal antiquities that the chief engineer brings on board. So she's kind of feeling a bit like going through the motions of her life, this is my life, this is the life I chose. And you kind of get a sense of melancholy in the beginning, and then she's thrust into this time travel mission, has no idea what's going on, but lands on her feet. I love it that she doesn't yield to Kirk And Kirk doesn't actually yield to her either. Like it feels very much like a companion pairing.
Yeah.
You know, like when they first appear in the 21st century, and he talks about her being reckless, and she's like, "This happened to me too." Like
Yeah.
I didn't push the button, and Kirk's just like trying to get back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the second time around watching the episode, that was one thing I really focused on because, he sits there and says, you're the one who just pushed the button. And I'm like watching it. Both of them had their thumbs ovary. Like, La'an had her thumb on the button, sure, but Kirk had his thumb on top of her thumb, and they both.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's on both of them.
It's on both of them to get there. And
but of course, Kirk's a man, so it's not my fault.
no, of course.
You're a woman, it's your fault.
All right, so let's talk about Kirk in this episode. This is an alternate timeline Kirk. So it's not Prime Kirk, which I absolutely love. That it's a Kirk adjacent, a version of Kirk that we don't know that Paul Wesley got to create for the purposes of this. Now, in the Prime universe, I don't know that I would have liked La'an with Kirk.
No.
We know where Kirk goes, and there's no romantic ending for Kirk. Like, he's married to his starship or his command or his authority or whatever. Like, he has romances. He has dalliances all the time. That's what Kirk is known for. But he never has a happy ending in a romantic sense. And I'm like, I kind of want La'an to have a happy ending because she had such a shitty upbringing.
Yeah.
Between the Noonien Singh and the Gorn, like, La'an needs something nice. And what do? Let's just rip her heart out, stomp on it, and put it back. That's what they did to her in this episode.
And again, going back to the end of the episode, it was just like, oh my God, my heart hurts. Yeah, this woman is thrust out of everything that is comfortable in her norm. And even as a Starfleet officer, being, out in random situations is normal for her. This was like above and beyond, which makes me think, like, how did this guy from the temporal agency, or was it temporal incursion agency or something like that?
It's temporal. Well, temporal investigations. There's a temporal prime directive. Some point in the 26th century, I think they actually form some version of time cops
TA.
or something. I don't know if they have a name or not, but
yeah. So like he shows up on the Enterprise and he's got a bullet wound, and he hands La'an the device, and I'm just like, okay, how did you end up on the Enterprise of all places, and why right in front of La'an? I mean, they kind of answer it near the end of the episode, but at the same time, it's like he had to have had this pre-planned and mapped out in his brain. Like, if everything goes to hell in a handbasket and I can't figure this situation out and stop this temporal incursion from happening, I have to go to plan B, and plan B is La'an.
No, I get what you're saying, and I was thinking, like, this is a potential show, another iteration of Star Trek, where it's like Star Trek time cops, like where you have as like 26th century, where they're going back. It's like, oh God, not again with Kirk, I
mean, they literally could do anything they wanted to.
Like,
it could be completely cheeseball, or it could be completely serious, both.
In a show like that, they could go Earth's history, Vulcan's history, Klingon history. They can be
Ferengi,
screwing up the timeline in all kinds of species, history and whatnot. And Star Trek is known for its time travel, and sometimes it does it really well. And this is one that I thought they did really well. And my guess is this temporal agent did have a list of contingencies. The question is, well, if he was shot by this Romulan agent and jumped back to the future, wouldn't he have jumped to Kirk's future, not La'an's future?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So like, I get he still has the device and all that jazz, but like,
and so maybe, they have to define rules of time jumping, and like, well, we beat the incursion wave, so that right after he hands off the thing and disappears, like, that's when the wave hits and she's on the alternate Enterprise, like something like, I don't know.
And I'm not a big fan of Star Trek and their temporal incursions. Like, what was it? Voyager had multiple episodes. I mean, there was a 2-part episode where there was nothing. It was nothing but temporal anomalies. I mean, it was the
Year of Hell? Was that the
yeah, it was the Year of Hell, yeah, where they had the it was like a temporal bomb or something like that. No, it was the ship was a temporal ship, and
They had
kept
temporal shielding, and
temporal
so they
shielding.
were protected every time the Krenim were trying to change time to get back to how it was.
Yeah.
And they were protected, and so they were,
And
fighting. with it.
Voyager finally augmented their shield to be a temporal shield, and they just continuously got screwed
Yes.
up. Like at the
Yes.
end of the episode, you're just like, how are we gonna see this ship make it back to the Alpha Quadrant? It's barely hanging on with dental floss.
We're gonna do that by sending future Janeway back to okay, so don't get me started on how Voyager ended.
Oh, my
That's a
God.
whole nother time nightmare.
As a goofy kid who loves like special effects, I loved the way it ended. Like the armor plating on the ship
sure.
was super cool. But as an adult, I'm just like who is more in. I enjoy a good story better now. I'm just like, really, we're gonna go for time travel on this one? Okay, it solves all of our problems. Just send somebody in the past.
So I know fans are wary because of how often Star Trek does time travel. Now, arguably one of the best original series episodes was the time travel episode, City on the Edge of Forever, where McCoy gets crazy, goes back in time to the 1930s, and then Spock and Kirk go back too, and they have to let Edith Keeler die so that the Nazis don't develop the atomic bomb first. And because if Edith Keeler lives, then society is forever altered. So that was an unexpected ending because you assume that they're going to be heroic and be able to have that happy ending. But no, in that episode, that was not the happy ending. Kirk kind of falls for, of course, Kirk falls for the whatever. But she's the one who dies. Now in this episode, it's Kirk who ends up. They described it in the Ready Room as Kirk sacrifices himself, but I actually felt his death was rather abrupt in this.
Kind of. I don't think he sacrificed himself. Like, he was definitely trying to double down and play a game of chess with this this Romulan secret agent, and she calls his bluff.
But I think we know Kirk is not going to live.
Oh yeah, you can't.
We know that, and I think the heartbreaking thing is that all we got were 2 cheap kisses in the love story, and not even a proper goodbye, because you expect at the end, okay, they're gonna click the button and he's gonna evaporate and she's gonna go back, that's how you think it's gonna end. At least they'll get a goodbye out of it, Nope.
I did. Okay, so I liked that they really messed with La'an.
Oh, yeah.
And her heart. But I'm sorry, I'm 6'7", and the whole scene between La'an and Kirk, and they kiss and they kind of rest their foreheads against each other. I don't know what that feels like. I don't know how that is. Like, is that nice? I mean, you and your husband are similar heights. Is that?
It visually looks really cool.
It does. I think
it's more of a visual thing than
Okay.
than an actual physical thing. But again, I get it. La'an starts as very, she's just starting to warm up. So but they've made this point in the Ready Room that she's never really had an intimate relationship. That's not to say she probably hasn't had intimate partners, but someone she actually makes a genuine connection with. Now, Kirk doesn't know the Noonien Singh name, so she has this freedom to be whoever she wants to be with him and be seen for who she is, and he sees her for that, and that's an amazing attraction.
Yeah.
So for me, that scene on the street where Kirk is teasing her, and then Kirk does a very Kirk thing and goes in and kisses her. And I'm like, she's not a timid woman, and he's not a shy man. Like, come on, let's heat it up a little bit more. If this is all we're getting, if this is the crux of the love story, I'm like, really?
Truth be told, I full on expected her to be like, because I felt that she saw that coming from a mile away, and I thought that she'd be like, stop him, and then maybe pull him in, like, on my terms.
Yeah.
But no. I'm torn.
I just wanted more, because I felt like the chemistry. I felt the chemistry was there, and Kirk's not gonna make it to the end of the episode. Like, give her something. he freaking dies, and all she got was these 2 measly little kisses out of it. Like, I believe by the end of the episode, she's fallen for him. Like,
Oh, whoa,
she
100%.
she has crossed a line with him that she's never crossed with anyone else, and she has a broken watch to show for it in the end, and she can't even talk about it.
And they did. I don't understand what the symbolism is with the watch at the very end. Now, you are a director and a writer. What is up with that? What in your opinion, your interpretation, when they pan back and she's out of focus and they focus in on the watch, and she's in the background, and they focus in on the watch, and then they fade to black? Like, is there some hidden subtext there?
Yeah. What that is the only evidence that it actually happened. Because that whole time sequence, she's not allowed to talk about it. She can talk about it with the engineer to an extent because the engineer was there. But that temporal or investigation says, keep your mouth shut. Like, so there's no one she can share this experience with. There's nothing. All she has is that watch to remember what happened.
Do you think that watch is going to come into play in another episode?
I don't know if you would see it as a principal prop or anything, but I could definitely see that as being one of La'an's prized possessions moving forward.
100%.
Because you have to understand that version of Kirk doesn't exist.
Yeah.
She's the only one
who knows
that Kirk. And that's what that watch symbolizes, that connection. It's all she has left.
But still, I mean, like with the temporal incursion and
being a timepiece and all that. I mean, yeah, there's that double meaning there too.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, do you think that we're going to, like, that watch is going to be substantial to a certain extent in some other episode down the line? Is that going to be like, oh, hey, where'd this come from? And, with the Romulan War and everything like that.
I don't think so, because the watch came from 21st century Earth, originally 20th century Earth. Pelia just held on to it. So, I mean,
it's from the 80s.
Yeah, it's from the 80s, So I don't think in that regard. The thing to remember is that Strange New Worlds is on a streaming platform where they only do 10 episodes per season. And
I want more.
I want more. I want my 22 episodes.
Right?
There was 20. There used to be 25 episodes in a season. They were shorter episodes, but overall you got more content, and I kind of do miss those days. So keeping that in mind, there's two things. Like, there's only so many times you can go back to something when you have a really small number of episodes. And Anson Mount was not really in this episode again. Like, this is the third episode now where he's been sort of a footnote.
Jen is mad that she's not getting her pike.
I'm my command crush. Like, so I had read that I believe during the early production of the season, like, he had his first child or something was born. So I think it's like excused. Like, he has reasons why the actor wasn't really available in the beginning, and I'm sure they'll make up for it later in the season.
Oh, I'm sure.
And this was interesting that you really had just La'an and a guest star really just held the whole episode, all 61 minutes of it. It was a long episode.
It was. And again,
and it could have been longer, in my opinion.
Easily. Pelia, or whatever her name is. Again, every scene that she's in any episode, she steals the episode, or steals the scene, excuse me. Definitely for me, like, the few times that we saw her, I was like, yeah, I love her. She just has that air about her, her voice, her presence. I just love her. I think she's a fantastic actor, and she just steals the scenes every time she's in one.
I wanted her to some kind of nod when La'an comes on the end, when La'an comes on the bridge, like some kind of like, I know, like, hey, I recognize that something. Just
jacket, that looks familiar.
and it could be that for as long as their lifespan is, they don't have the memory.
I mean, she did say that she has a poor memory when it comes to faces, but yours is nowhere in my brain.
Yeah,
or whatever her line was, but
yeah.
So that would make sense. I mean, I wrote at the very beginning when she says the star date, what does she say? 1581.2. I went online and I found out that it is July 31st, 2324.
Okay.
And point two, I think that would be that it is 1700 hours.
Okay. That's
So
5 p.m. for those of you who don't know military time.
but I mean, the 23rd century, so this is a couple hundred years into the future. So, I mean, she's already lived on Earth for a few hundred years. I mean, she
Right.
literally says, oh, I've been around since Pythagorean made up that stupid math.
So this kind of gets into the whole Doctor Who thing. Time Lords and Doctor Who have the memory capacity to remember
Everything.
hundreds of years. But I don't know if Paleo's species has the capacity for that much memory. You know,
At the very least, she doesn't.
So and this event where two random people showed up in a storefront asking him. I mean, it is presumably what triggered her interest in engineering, but that might not have been enough, to keep it in the long-term memory.
Maybe we'll see in another episode. Maybe she goes and has a cup of coffee or a beer with La'an, and she's like, I need to talk to you.
So after watching this episode, I went back and watched Space Seed, which is the episode that introduced Khan Noonien Singh in the original series. And Khan's character rules a good portion of the Earth during the eugenics wars in World War III. And in the original Star Trek, that's all lumped into the same time frame, which is the mid-1990s. So Star Trek, in the Romulan agent says it's like temporal wars have been fought over this and whatnot. So the insinuation is that the eugenics wars in World War III have kind of been pushed out from the 90s, and so Khan in the mid-90s was an adult and then put aboard the ship and sent out into deep space.
And now we're in 2023 and he's an 8-year-old boy.
Right, exactly. And I don't know if they actually specify the date. They just say 21st century.
Yeah,
and they're particularly vague about that, and I really appreciated that they were vague about what the exact date was they went back.
I gotta agree with you on that one. I'm glad that they didn't sit there and say, oh, it's January 31st or whatever. And it was winter.
It was clearly winter in Toronto.
Yeah.
I mean, in the behind the scenes,
I would say either early winter or late winter.
Well, they were
probably early.
She was talking about the scene where they're interacting with the cops in the car, and how they were like filming in the middle of a blizzard. Like they'd call action and no snow would be falling, and by the time the scene was over, they were covered in snow. So
I know I did wonder about that. I'm like, how is it like sunny in this scene, and 2 seconds later they're driving down the freeway or driving down the road, and it's basically a whiteout.
Now every interior shot of the car was shot on a soundstage with an augmented reality type screen.
That makes sense.
That was really interesting to see how they were able to do that. They've got the car on a gimbal, so that they can make the car move.
Nice.
And they're filming against a screen that's, changing the scenery.
That's cool.
So the car's not actually moving. The images on the screen and the camera is moving in sync with the screen. So that was kind of cool to see because it looks very good. Like everything on the show looks amazing.
Oh yeah.
The cinematography, like even like Toronto. I want to go to Toronto now. I've never been to Toronto. I'm like, this city looks amazing.
Go in the summertime. I heard it's really nice in the summertime. I got it. Okay, so now as much as I am loving this season and loving this show, I got to be a little nitpicky here. When they see the explosion and they head over to the bridge, if you listen to the news anchor or the reporter that's out there, she's reporting and she's like, it has been 1 hour since the explosion of the bridge. I'm sorry. They were looking at the bridge and the bridge looked like it was maybe a mile away. It does not take an hour to walk.
I don't know.
I was just like, how is it going to take an hour? And I'm sorry. You have cops that are just like derp to derp to derp walking around. I mean, come on, director, get your actors out there, get them more seriously. They should
They
have
were
been
Canadian. Maybe that makes a difference.
Okay. That's funny.
They were Canadian cops. Well, And when the cops have Kirk and the Romulan
Oh,
agent
that
is like,
was so dumb.
"Are you profiling him because he's American?" And I'm like,
Okay, that was funny too.
"Do Canadians profile
Oh,
Americans?"
I believe they do. But even that was like, I'm sorry, he's speeding, he's reckless endangerment. Like, there's no way that cop would have been like, "Oh, okay, sir, you're free to go. I'm warning you, don't do that again." No, I don't care. Canadian cops, American cop, no. I mean, the American cops probably would have had him on the ground. Then again, he is white, so maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just felt that scene when they got to the bridge, it needed a little more. I feel that there would have been a ton more people there, crowding around trying to get pictures. I mean, I get it because they needed the room, they needed the space for Kirk and La'an to get over there and to meet this young woman who they later find out is the secret agent or spy from the Romulan Empire. I get that, but at the same time, I'm like, come on. Let's get a little more realism here.
I wanted to see some urgency with like first responders as far as like bodies being moved around. Like presumably there was a lot of traffic on the bridge, but I don't know. It was more. I guess it was more important just to get the photonic evidence of the discoloration of the debris.
And I caught that the second that they showed it. I mean, it was just too blatantly obvious. Like this one piece of rubble is on a stretcher, is on a gurney, and they're drawing it out, and it's like, yeah, okay.
That whole thing was really weird, because like the van drives away, and I guess the van must know they're being followed by the red car.
How could they not?
So I guess that's why they jump through the barricade or whatever to evade and whatnot. But I'm like, why are they being so secretive to get away? It's not like any present first responder, anyone would know that damage was caused by an exotic weapon.
No,
there's no reason to even cover it up.
And it's a bombing, so of course, investigators are going to take evidence and study it, and this looks like it has some evidence on it, some, particulate that's going to be from an explosive device. So of course, it makes sense that somebody would take evidence to go to a lab and study it. So you don't need to be secretive about it.
No. So we can talk about Khan and the fact that, like, this was brought up in the Ready Room, that Kirk dies protecting Khan. Well, it's a version of Kirk that's never met Khan, so he doesn't understand the significance of that. And Kirk never knew what was behind the door, just that La'an could open it.
Yeah.
He died before he could really see any of that. And this is where something, again, I would do where it's like, rather than having a heroic death, I'm just going to shoot you because I don't need you anymore in the episode. Like, that sounds like something I would do. It's brutal. It's mean. That's how you're going to kill this version. Okay, we're going to kill Kirk. Like, just, and we're done. Click,
It's more, to me, it's more realistic. It's not this long, drawn out scene.
And that's what I love it for storytelling, for dramatic purposes. It gives La'an that much more to feel, as this is all coming to a head, as she's trying to unravel all of this. And so, like, Kirk served no further purpose in that episode.
No, none.
So that's where he needed to make his exit. And like, I'm not gonna say I'm happy that's how it, like, I think I would have preferred actually to have.
She is happy that he died.
I will say, Kirk has never been my favorite captain. And I've gone back and I've watched like original series episodes, and I'm like, no, he's written fine. Like, the character is generally written fine. There's a couple of times he's got some questionable lines of dialogue, but it was the 60s,
Yeah.
But as far as like a captain goes, as far as commanding a ship and whatnot, there's a lot that I really like about the character of Kirk. I've just never liked the performance. And I think that probably goes to a bad experience I had with Bill Shatner at a convention, where I just really could not take his bullshit up on stage. I really just wanted to leave. Because he was really kind of full of himself and kind of trying to put on you're like, dude, you're a has-been actor, and these are a bunch of adult fans, oogling over you. Like, to me, I saw through all that, and I'm like, Anyway, so I think that's always tainted my version of Kirk. But what Paul Wesley has done, and this version of Kirk, who was born in space, who lost his brother, who has been in
on the USS Iowa,
USS,
which I liked.
yeah.
I thought that was great.
So like in his his reality, like Earth is at war with Romulus, with the Romulan Empire, so there's this threat of war. There's a lot of this pain and angst with this version of Kirk, which is why I think La'an can connect so well with him, because of her own pain and angst. Different, but you can commiserate over over pain. And so I really like this version of Kirk, and I've liked how Paul Wesley has portrayed Kirk, and I'm like, that's how I want to see Kirk, not how it was originally done. I think in many ways Paul Wesley has improved on the original.
Oh, very much so. Especially like I'm with you on this one. Like this version, this alternate timeline Kirk, I really enjoyed, and I enjoyed the opportunity to get to know the actor playing this character a little bit more, because the first time he's introduced to the audience, I didn't like him. I really did not like his look, how he presented it. Kirk, I mean, I know that he's a lieutenant right now, he's not a captain yet, but I wasn't getting behind him. But this, I think I can get behind this Kirk.
Yeah.
Well, again, this is a different timeline Kirk, but we'll see.
Like this version, I really liked this version of Kirk, and I really liked this version of Kirk with La'an, and I felt it was really believable that this would be a version that she would be interested in. I don't think Lieutenant Kirk in the Prime timeline, like how we know the direction of Kirk's life, I don't think that'd be a good fit, And there's been speculation, because Kirk does come back, Prime Kirk, and will there be some kind of something between the two of them? I'm like, well, the actors clearly have chemistry. That's not a problem. I just don't think the characters would work in the Prime the way they did in this alternate reality. So I kind of hope they don't. As much as I love love stories and romance and sci-fi, I don't know that I would like. I feel like it could be disingenuous to the guy who died.
I guess the only thing that we can say is time will tell.
Time will tell. Or it won't, or they'll just change it.
I'll see myself out.
So speaking of time, this Romulan has been on Earth for 30 years.
Oh, she's so pissed.
I mean, I'd be pissed if I were
too.
Romulan. And this kind of goes back to something we were talking about when we did the Star Trek Nemesis movie review. Like, why is the Federation the Romulan Empire's adversary?
Yeah, we barely have ever encountered them. And
my understanding is that Romulan territories, like, it skirts up to like the Earth stars, like the Alpha Quadrant and the Beta Quadrant, because the Romulan Empire is supposed to be more in the Beta Quadrant. It's like on the border of the Alpha Quadrant, and Earth is sort of close to Romulan territory. So proximity wise, I guess it makes sense. But my understanding is that Romulan territory is pretty vast in the opposite direction of the Federation. And the Federation has never, to my knowledge, tried to expand into Romulan-controlled space. Like, they set up this neutral zone, early on, and we talked about it, they discuss it in the Balance of Terror, which is the season 1 finale of Strange New Worlds, A Quality of Mercy, where they play on the Balance of Terror episode from the original series. So, like, we established the rules of this, I wouldn't call it a treaty, but this understanding that you don't go into the neutral zone, you don't cross into it. But the Romulans, for whatever reason, continue to see the Federation as its biggest adversary. And I still don't understand why. Like,
we all understand why the Klingon and Federation don't get along, or didn't get along, and had a 4-year war.
Yeah.
And they bury the hatchet and become tentative allies for a long time, and then they actually become full-fledged allies after the Dominion War.
Yeah.
Or during and after the Dominion War. But yeah, the Romulans, it's like every once in a while they have an understanding and they help each other out, but then like 2 months later they're at each other's throats again. And it's always the Romulans that start it.
Oh, always.
I mean, I'm sure that, some admiral has done something to piss off the Romulans, because, you can't have a nice admiral. every Starfleet admiral has to be a pompous ass.
I think they're trying to change that with April.
With April, I think April's doing
trying
a
to
good
change
job.
that narrative.
And I do like the actor who plays Admiral April. I think he's a good actor.
Oh, phenomenal! Yeah. So I don't have a whole lot more to say other than I from beginning to end I love this episode.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was reading my notes and I was like, oh God, Spock. How the does Spock exist in this alternate timeline? I'm sorry, am I wrong? His mother's human, right?
Spock's mother is human. Amanda Grayson.
The whole reason that Spock's mom and father got together is that Spock's dad was sent as an ambassador to Earth and to the Federation, and that's how they met, and yada, yada, yada. Boom, here's a kid. And then they adopt a child. We don't talk about her.
Yes, Michael Burnham probably doesn't exist in this timeline. My guess is that it's probably like there are other Vulcans and humans do interact in this alternate timeline.
Yeah.
So there's still a possibility in the understanding that we have come to know, like that's how Spock is created. It probably would have made more sense to have someone or some other person playing that role.
Yeah. Or just throwing this out here, makeup, design, make him more Vulcan.
Make him, yeah.
Make him look less human.
And maybe he was supposed to be full-blooded Vulcan. I don't know.
I mean, that I could have bought that if he was just more Vulcan. I don't know how you can get more Vulcan.
I don't know.
Spock looks pretty freaking Vulcan to me.
I think that was just thrown in, just
to have the actor.
Well, and it all
Spock
that scene like that shows Kirk's universe. Like that short bridge scene that was like, we need your help to defeat the Romulans.
Sorry, can't do
Nope,
it.
you're not gonna help you out. All right.
End the call.
That's
I did like how there was nothing drawn out. It wasn't
it was
sorry,
really
buddy. You want to come over and
chase.
have a cup of tea or something? No, it was like, cut it.
So start to finish this episode, like I was glued. I was riveted the whole time, and it's a longish episode at like 61 minutes, and I was looking at it like the scene where they're in what I'm guessing is a very nice hotel. Because
how much money did he swindle?
I want to stay
chess?
there. Like that was a swanky hotel room.
I know he's walking around with a wad of dough, but damn,
Yeah.
like there were some like chess hustlers out there that he was hustling.
Yeah. So, when she comes out in the middle of the night, I would have liked to have seen something there, like a conversation or whatnot. And I know, cut for time, there was no time in the episode to have anything more there. I'm like, that could have been another thing to further their relationship or something, or a scene like that could have happened later because they do spend a couple of days in Toronto.
Yeah.
Like, because they take a day trip to Vermont, and they're like, how did you get through border security? They did, like, we bribed a border guard or whatever. I'm like, well, that's not easy to do post 9/11.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially coming into America.
Yeah. So that's pretty impressive. So there was a lot of other things that would have been fun to see, like the challenges they would have had to overcome for all of that. But again, it was a timing issue. But sort of to pack that much story, so in the beginning, she's going through her motions. She's sent on this mission. She falls in love with Kirk. And then it's really not until Kirk dies that it's unraveled to realize Khan is at the heart of this. Khan, who shares her last name, who that's her, she's part of that Khan legacy, the thing that she's been fighting all of her life, being called an augment, and and to come face to face with like her version of Hitler, as a child, like
you have that what's the word I'm looking for here? That situation where it's like, if you could go back in time and kill baby Hitler, would you do that? That moral quandary.
Right. And she has the benefit of knowing that after Khan comes Utopia. But if you take Khan out of the equation, the Romulans move in and there's no Utopia. So it's like the bad has to happen before the good can happen. And coming to terms with that after just losing a guy that you're starting to fall for, like, just keep those hits coming, you know? And then she gets back home. Oh, you can't talk about it with anyone ever. Bye.
Yeah. Toodles.
Sucks to be you. Come on. How do you not just lose it, you know?
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean,
La'an
she
is
kind of does.
She does.
Breaks down.
No,
and
she
just
totally
starts
breaks down
bawling.
and has a very natural reaction to all of that. And she should. I mean, I'd be worried if she didn't.
Yeah.
You know? But just it's phenomenal that to see that whole arc. And while Strange New Worlds is predominantly episodic, standalone episodes, there are trickles of a through story, like La'an's personal growth and arc throughout this. I want to know what comes next. How is she impacted moving forward by this?
Yeah. And, you know, going back to that scene in the hotel room, I thought that scene was very well done in the sense that it portrayed a lot of emotion, and there was a lot going on between the two of them. You see his eyes open and he knows that she's there, but he hesitates, and she steps forward half a step, hesitates, and then goes back, and then he sits up and looks. So there's a lot communicating to us, the viewer, without them having any lines of dialogue.
Oh, absolutely.
So as much as I'm with you, I would have loved to have seen that scene, you know, go a little bit longer and a little bit further. I still think that they did a really good job.
No, they did. They
communicating to us without communicating.
I just really want to see more physicality. I want sparks to fly. Like when it's done convincingly, like it's a fantastic thing. I don't want like Kirk in every original series episode where it just falls right into it. I'm like, okay, there he goes again. You know, not like that. Like this.
Or that awkward smash my face into the pretty green girl.
They did it so well.
At least the kiss that he gave her, he does come in, stop, and like I like that her eyes were closed. She opens her mouth just a little bit, and his eyes are open, and he stops and pauses, like, okay, she is okay with me doing this. He's not like the original Kirk who just is gonna face fuck you with his face.
Yes.
Excuse my language. But if you've ever seen the original series, you know that Kirk was oof.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to make out with him.
No.
For multiple reasons, but you know.
Yeah. It's pretty aggressive. There's a lot of that in the 1960s television, man. It was whew.
I mean, it doesn't really have anything to do with anything, but the explosion when the bridge explodes, their window would have burst. Like every window around them would have just been shattered. I'm sorry, that bridge is huge, and that explosion takes out a massive chunk of the bridge.
Yes.
There's no way that window didn't shatter and they have got glass in their face. But suspend realism, enjoy the episode.
But it was so cool seeing it in reflection versus seeing it, you know. Like,
that was kind of cool. I did like that.
It was an interesting directorial choice to do that.
Yeah. I mean, they were having like that intense conversation about morality and timelines and things like that. And then all of a sudden in the reflection of the window.
Well, I think that, you know, Kirk brought up a very good point. Like, who's to say your timeline's the one that should survive, you know? And she's like, Sam's alive in mine.
And he's like, oh.
You win.
Yeah.
I'm going to be dying.
I thought the same thing. I was like, you know, he brings up a really valid point. And then she says, but Sam is...
I've heard all about you from Sam.
I work with Sam every single day.
Sam's alive? You win.
Yeah.
Like,
definitely winner, chicken dinner.
And maybe that's why Kirk is so confident facing the Romulan. He knows his time is short.
Yeah, whatever happens to him, it doesn't matter because his brother and him are going to be together in another timeline.
Yeah.
I thought Canadians were supposed to be like good people, but apparently they create Khan. who commits mass genocide.
Well,
So Canadians are not as good as we are led to believe.
I don't know. Like there's a lot to unpack there. So the Noonien Singh Institute's in Toronto, where okay.
If Canada actually has a genetics lab, I'm a little worried.
Right. Well, I guess the original script did call for them to be in New York. But the
Which would be why he said, "Oh, this is mid-century."
Well, I mean, it kind of looks like Times Square if you've never seen it.
Yeah.
You know, and
if you've only heard stories about it,
yeah.
there are big screens like New York
and
Times Square.
I guess it was I don't know if it was a financial or logistical reason they couldn't shoot in New York. So like, why don't we just use Toronto? Like, I think it's brilliant because I don't think Canada's ever been featured in any Star Trek.
I mean, Canada's used in a lot of sci-fi. Because
well, I mean, Toronto is used to film all kinds of cities.
Yeah.
You know, because you can't afford to film in the actual cities, so go to Toronto. So.
But yeah, so I'm a little hesitant to go to Toronto now that I know that they're going to create
Con.
Sorry, I had to do that.
No, you didn't.
I did.
You did?
The universe told me I had to do that.
Okay.
What? Everybody else gets to do that. But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought this episode was really great. I mean, so far, season 1 had me hooked. And then when you and I started talking about doing this series, I was like, absolutely sold. Let's start doing Strange New World season 2. So far, I'm loving every episode that we've watched, that they've shown. I want more. And like Jen and I said earlier, we want more than 10 episodes, guys.
Yes.
I know that you're like dialed in for 10 episodes a season.
Because they're really expensive to make.
We get that. But we want more.
We want more. More.
So, I mean, I'm excited for next week's episode. So bring it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's all I got.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on another episode of C.I.C. Lounge. I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.
We'll see you next week.